if you understand perspective, you can fetch more marks, because perspective is the key to geography. That means what exactly is geography as a subject is all about. That's what perspective is all about. Now if you look at geography, it has TS dimension. One is temporal meaning being time dimension. And when we do a geographical study which is inspired by time dimension, we call it chronology, right? If you look at, say, Davidian cycle, it is a evolutionary approach, so it is a chronological model, we can say that also, or chrono sequence model. Okay, so temporal dimension, that means it is chronology. Then we have spatial dimension. Spatial dimension means you study the space. So two dimensions are there. One is time, another is space. So spatial dimension, the study of spatial dimension is known as chorology. Okay. In fact, it is Immanuel Kant will talk about chorology in detail. Okay. So that is, one is chronology, another is chorology. Study of space is known as chorology, or study of regions, we call it chorology. Then when you study geography from a time perspective, we call it chronology, okay, or temporal geography. Now, apart from this, there are two more dimensions. Physical geography, some of the geographers focus on physical geography, while others focus on human geography. For example, we have Alexander von Humboldt. He emphasized that a geographer should do physical geography, whereas Carl Ritter, he will talk about human geography. Physical geography, say Humboldt, whereas human geography is given emphasis by Ritter. Okay, we'll discuss that in detail anyway. So keep these two important dimensions in mind. Now, if you look at perspective is the poem or soul of geography. That means it is the key to understanding geography. If we miss or don't understand perspective, then we don't understand geography properly. Okay, and we can use this perspective and the theories around perspective and use that, say, when you are talking about Davidian cycle or Peng cycle or any other model, or say you are writing a answer to on any other part. Okay, we can bring perspective and include that in different geographical answers. Now, the major dimension is how geography became a discipline. Okay, initially there was no geographer, everyone was a philosopher. If you understand social science, we know that the father of all social science or mother of all social science is philosophy. From philosophy, we'll see branching out of different social science, whether it is sociology, anthropology, whatever you call it. Okay, so everyone was a philosopher initially, but then different disciplines will develop. Similarly, one of the discipline is geography. We'll see how geography become a discipline. Then the philosophical aspect of geography, that means what geography should be, what a geographer should do, what is the primary concern of a geographer should be. That is what is the perspective is all about. Apart from that, what the geographers should study. That means what exactly is geography. When we call geography, what exactly is geography, that is what is the perspective is all about, and a lot of debate and discussions will be there around it. Okay, now there are two main branches of thought what geography should be. When we think about what a geographer should do, two branches of geographers are there. One group, they focus on the ideographic aspect of geography. What is ideographic? And remember, when I am discussing perspective, you have to familiarize yourself with this kind of terminology. If you are not writing this kind of terminology, you will not fetch very good marks. So keep that in mind. So ideographic means regional study. We'll discuss what exactly is regional study. It is also about specialization. It is descriptive, diversity, or it studies diversity or uniqueness. It is about deductive reasoning, and it is a multivariate study and a confined space. The other variant is that geography should be monothetic. Monothetic means systematic geography. It should be also nomothetic. Nomothetic means geography should be a law making enterprise. Now let me explain this one. Let's say we have two regions, okay? Region A, then we have region B. Two regions are there, and let's say these are all, they represent what? Geographical fact. They represent geographical fact. Now, in region A, geographical fact means, say for example, in this particular region, the people appear black, or the climatology, or it can be any geographical fact. It can be a human geographical fact, or it can be a physical geographical fact. Okay. Let's say in region A, we have two, geographical facts. Now, in region B, four geographical facts are there. Okay. Now, as a geographer, suppose you are a geographer, what should be your primary concern? That is what is the debate is all about. If you are a geographer who believes in regional geography or idiographic geography, what you will do is you will go to region A and you will find out how region A is different from region B. For example, you will study, and if you go to region A, you will study all the factors. That means you will study the physical geography, you will study the human geography. You are studying the, say for example, I go to Australia as a geographer and I study everything about Australia. The climate, the soil, the vegetation, the kind of population, their culture, their polity, their economy, everything is geography, right? So I will study all the facts. That means I am doing what? A multivariant study. I am studying multiple variables in a single region. That's why it is called multivariant study, and my focus is only in, say, in a particular region, let's say Australia. Okay. But if I am a geographer, and in this case what will happen, what I will do, suppose I am in, say, studying Australia, I will study all the variations or geographical facts in that particular region, and I will describe them. That's why it is descriptive. Okay. I will study the diversity. For example, I have been to Africa, Madagascar, and then I have gone to, say, Australia. Then I'll study what is the variation. Okay. Why in, say, in Australia we find kangaroo, or what we call marsupials, right? So why do we find them? That is one unique geographical fact, and it is also study about, diversity and uniqueness. Then geography becomes what? Regional geography. So I go to a region and I study the specifics of a region, I study the uniqueness of a region, I study the diversity of that region, and I study almost all the facts, geographical facts of that region. And when I say geographical facts, it can be physical geographical fact, it can be human geographical fact. Okay, the way I told you, right? It can be soil, climate, vegetation, culture, economy, polity, everything, right? So, but my focus is only on that particular region and what makes it unique. Then that understanding of geography is idiographic geography. Okay, and we use what? Deductive reasoning over here. But there is another group of geographers who believe that geography should be a monothetic. Monothetic entity means systematic entity. And when we say systematic entity, what we will be doing is we require generalization, and it should be nomothetic entity. These two words you should remember. One is monothetic, another is nomothetic. Monothetic means systematic. For example, as a geographer, I go to, say, North America, South America, Africa, Australia. So this is region A, B, C, D. 4 different regions. But I study, say, only climate. Or if I study only, say, soil. Okay. So I am going and visiting different regions, but I am studying only one geographical fact in that region. Then what will happen is I will try to observe or find out some kind of pattern. Right. And when I develop a pattern, then I can develop a theory, and from theory I can develop a law. Okay. So this is what is called systematic geography. यहाँ पे क्या है? You are going to a particular region, studying everything about the region and finding the uniqueness about that region, finding the diversity of that region and all that. So it is mostly descriptive in nature. Here you are not making any law. You are just describing the things. It's like journal book entry. Okay. But if you are a geographer who is visiting different regions, studying one, say single variant study. That means you are studying only one factor. It might be soil, climate, vegetation, yeah, any geographical factor. It might be human geographical factor or a physical geographical factor. You study one particular fact, geographical fact, and then you study the pattern across different regions, and then you go and theorize something, and then you make a law. Then what happens is, it is known as generalizations. For example, you can say you have visited multiple tropical countries, and you theorize that tropical countries have high diversity. For example, you made a law, geographical law, saying that all the tropical countries have high diversity, right? So that can be a law. So that is what is called generalization. You are studying 5 or 6 regions, but you are generalizing to a world scale. मतलब यहाँ पे देखो, suppose I have visited 5 or 6 regions and I found a pattern, and out of that pattern I establish commonality. From the commonality I do a inductive reasoning, right? I studied 5 or 6 regions, I found a pattern over here. Okay, when I found the pattern over here, for example, you visited temperate regions, and you found out that the animals in that region are heavier in size. Okay, then you do a law saying that people living in colder climates or animals living in colder climates are generally larger in size. Okay, then that becomes a law. So that is known as, so you studied only 5 regions, you have not studied the whole world, but you will apply it to the world scale. Okay, because a law will apply to the whole world, right? So when you make that law, that means you are making a generalization, and this kind of reasoning is known as inductive reasoning. You study only 5 regions, find a pattern, created a theory or law, and when you apply that law to the whole world, that is called inductive reasoning. Okay, uniqueness should not be here. Okay, so systematic geography talks about what? That the geography should be monothetic. These wordings is very important. You should be aware of these wordings, and when you write your answer, these wordings should be there. That geography should be monothetic, it should be nomothetic. That means monothetic means systematic geography. Nomothetic means it should be a law-making enterprise. Just like, see, geography as a science. So, and what makes a subject as science? That means it should make law. Okay, here geography is not making any law. It is like storybook. So that is the major different approach to geography. So in systematic geography, pattern, commonality, and law, these are the features. यहाँ पे क्या है? You study the diversity, uniqueness, all that. We'll discuss that in detail anyway. Hope you understand. Idiographic versus nomothetic, or idiographic versus monothetic. Now, if you look at geography as a discipline over the years, initially, as I told you, there was no geographer. There were only philosophers, because philosophy was everyone was a philosopher, because geography was not a discipline or subject that point of time. So, initially, if you look at, say, the Greeks, Romans, Arabs, they believed in natural determinism. Matlab, the environment. See, geography, primary concern of geography is the relationship between man and environment. Okay, keep that in mind, man and environment. So Greeks, Romans, Arabs, they believed that environment controls the fate of man, the destiny of man. So that was known as natural determinism. Then there will be age of voyages. A lot of Europeans will start, a lot of voyages will be there, discovery will be there. Out of this discovery, when you go to different places, we find different animals, we see different things. For them, for us, it is unique because we have not seen those things. So that becomes diversity. They see that one particular region is different from another particular region. So for example, Europeans, when they visited Africa or Asia or any other, Australia, they saw different things, and they wanted to understand why these particular regions have this kind of diversity or uniqueness to them, and they wanted to find the explanation, but they found try to find the explanation from nature. See, initially everything that a man found interesting, or man was curious, the explanation was essentially given by religion. That is what is called teleological determinism. That means religion will explain everything. If there is a different animal or different phenomena altogether, then religion is to provide the answer. But in the age of voyages, we'll start finding explanations from the nature itself. Okay. Now, this age is mostly dominated by, again, That deterministic thought will be there, that environment determines the fate of man, that is environmental determinism. Then historical determinism, history determines the fate of man. And then teleological determinism, this is religion determines the fate of man. These are the three major thoughts will be there. Now next is, we from Greek, Roman, Arab, from age of voice, we slowly migrate into pre-classical geography phase. Okay, two important geographers will be there. I want you to remember their name: Bernard Verenius and Immanuel Kant, two most important philosophers. They are not geographers because geography is not a subject yet. Keep that in mind. Okay. So Bernard Verenius, I think he was a map maker, and Immanuel Kant, obviously, he was a professor. Now, there will be a debate on study of place. Now, this point of time, Kant will talk about what? Chorology. Chorology, as I told you, geography has time dimension and space dimension. When you study space dimension, it becomes chorology. And Kant will talk about that. And Kant also will talk about what? Kantian exceptionalism. What is the meaning of Kantian chorology and Kantian explananism? See, these wordings may sound, may sound Greek and Latin, but these are pretty, easy. These wordings you have to use because that's how, you are going to write in your exam. Now, Kant talked about what? Kant focused that a geographer should study a region, that is chorology, and Kant also advocated that the geographer should study the exceptions. Exceptions meaning if you are going to study the exceptions, for example, in Australia, if you compare between, say, Australia and Africa, in Australia we find kangaroos, we find marsupials, which are not found in, say, Africa. So you will be studying the diversity. So Kantian exceptionalism is nothing but studying the uniqueness or diversity of a region, and he advocated that geographers should study regions. So he is talking about what? Or furthering the idea of regional geography, not systematic geography. Okay. Anyway, Bernard Verenius and Immanuel Kant, they will give the philosophical foundation to regional geography. So initially, as I told you, there was no geography or geographer. Then there were philosophers, and these philosophers, they will talk about what? That a geographer should study, particular regions. That means initially geography for near about 200 years was regional geography only. Then becomes the classical phase. Classical phase mein kya hoga? In classical phase, explanation for diversity. Whenever man found, diversity, it wanted to explain it. So पहले क्या था? That explanation was sought from the God, then explanation was sought from the nature, then explanation was sought from science. We started asking, we looked at science to make us understand this, particular events or diversity specifically. Now, classical phase, we'll see empiricism. Empiricism means quantification. Quantification. When you bring mathematics into the realm of geography, that becomes empiricism. You are talking about data, fact, logic, that becomes empiricism. Okay? Two important geographers will be there in this age. Alexander von Humboldt, and he was a physical geographer. His focus was physical geography, whereas Carl Ritter will give a strong foundation to human geography. Okay? Eventually, with the help of Alexander von Humboldt and Carl Ritter, geography becomes a discipline. And if you look at geography as a subject, it has very German origin. Okay? Keep that in mind. And whenever Germans do something, the French will, rebel. We know that. So, initially Germans will say that, we'll focus on physical geography. Then the French will, focus on human geography. When Germans will talk about determinism, the French will talk about possibilism. A German-French fight will be seen in all other disciplines as well. Keep that in mind. Okay, let's move ahead. This is, introduction to geography. If you look at the syllabus, we'll start from areal differentiation, but I am discussing, prior to that, so that you have a strong understanding of things. Then we can, go ahead and discuss AR or areal differentiation. Now, geography, there are two major schools of thought: determinism and possibilism. As I told you, German school, majority of German geographers were determinist. Example, Frederick Ratzel. ठीक है, Ratzel will have a American student. Her name is Ellen Churchill Semple. She will take determinism to America. ठीक है, she is one of the prominent geographers. Now they will focus on one environmental determinism. मतलब क्या है? That environment determines the fate of man. Okay. And they will believe that man is a passive agent of change. That means man cannot do much. He is subject to the limitations put forth by the environment. He cannot overcome the limitations that is put forth by the nature of environment. So man is a passive agent of change. That is the viewpoint given by or advocated by the deterministic school. Possibilistic school, it had a strong foundation in the French. Okay. And they will believe that man is an active agent of change. And when man becomes an active agent of change when we have technology with us. For example, we cannot change the climate of, say, Saudi Arabian desert, but we can create microclimate by using air conditioning, etc., and make it livable. Or we can say Rajasthan में जैसे इंदिरा गांधी नहर canal है, and we have created that canal, and जहाँ पे green agriculture was not possible, we made agriculture possible. So man can be an active agent of change. Man has the ability to change its environment. This school of thought comes from possibilistic school of thought, and this man is able to do that because technology, man has technology. Okay. One of the prominent founder of possibilistic school of thought is Vidal de Lavlas. He is otherwise known as Paul Vidal de Lavlas. Okay. He is a French. Right. Now, these are two extremes. Whenever you come across a theory, or doesn't matter, whether you are studying geography or any other thing, or you study religion also. We had Hinduism, backlash was Buddhism, then there was, synthesis. Similarly, everywhere, Catholicism, Protestantism, then there was, So, whenever there are two extremes, एक thesis रहेगा, एक antithesis रहेगा. Eventually, the truth is somewhere in the synthesis. Same trend will find in every, wherever, in religion, in philosophy, in all other, social science as well. So deterministic school of thought is one extreme, possibilistic school of thought is another extreme. In fact, both of them were wrong into, to certain degree. Okay? That's why eventually an Australian, Griffith Taylor, he will talk about what? Stop and go determinism. That means man has the ability to overcome the limitations put forth by the environment, but not always. For example, Saudi Arabian desert example I gave you, right? Man can create microclimate, but can we change the whole desert altogether, or can we turn Sahara desert into, say, in Amazon forest? That is impossible for us. Okay. Or can we stop earthquake and all that? No. So obviously sometimes the nature puts up a wall before man and man cannot jump it, so man has to stop. Okay. But sometimes, although there is obstacle put forth before man by the nature, still man is able to overcome it by its by application of technology. That is known as go. So it's like red and green, red and traffic light जैसा, ठीक है, green है and orange है. Orange you cannot go, green you can go. ठीक है, it's like stop and go determinism. So this is the interplay of man and environment. In fact, ये थोड़ा गेम थ्योरी जैसा है, ठीक है, इन द सेंस कि whenever the limitations can be overcome by man, then it becomes possibilism, right? But sometimes we cannot overcome the limitations put forth by nature because this limitation might be huge. Okay, so then man has to stop. So that's why determinism is to some degree it is true, possibilism to some degree it is true. So there is a truth in both the philosophy, and eventually the synthesis is known as stop and go determinism given by the Australian Griffith Taylor. Okay. Now, moving on, two important debates will be there. One is between Richard Hartson and Schaeffer. Okay. Richard Hartson and Schaeffer. Richard Hartson is the promoter of regional geography, whereas Schaeffer will say that geography is, geographers, if they study regional geography, suppose I go to Australia or Africa or Madagascar and keep on writing, I found this, I found that, this, that, all the diversity and all everything that I have mentioned. then that becomes descriptive, that becomes a journalistic book. There is no law, there is no thesis, there is no science in that. Okay, so Sefer will hate regional geography because it is not scientific enough. That's why he will advocate what? He will advocate systematic geography. He will push the geographers to go and study different regions, but one particular say climate or vegetation or soil, and find a pattern. For example, I visit 5 continents and studied the soils, and whenever I found black soil, I found that cotton is possible, cotton cultivation is possible over there. So I create a thesis or a law or something. Okay. So he wanted geographers to create law. For Sefer, geography should be a nomothetic entity and monothetic entity. Okay. It should be systematic as well as law making entity. And geography should be prescriptive. When you make a law, obviously it is prescriptive. You are prescribing something, right? So prescriptive. And what is the focus geographers should be worried about? They should find out pattern, commonality, and make law. Whereas Hartson, he will talk about what? He is an advocate of regional geography, where geography is nothing but idiographic geography, which is essentially descriptive. The focus is diversity, finding the uniqueness and the specifics of a region. Okay? This is the major difference. And this is known as the Hartson-Sefer debate. Now, systematic geography, when I say systematic geography, physical geography, we have say geomorphology, climatology. These are, systematic geography. Geomorphology we study, right? That is systematic geography. Systematic physical geography. Similarly, we have systematic human geography. For example, when we study say economic geography, urban geography, as a model, those are systematic human geography. Okay. Regional, जैसे zonal हो गया. Zonal, we study say different landforms. In geography, geomorphology also we study a particular landform in a particular region. That becomes regional geography. जैसे tropical geography हो गया, arid landforms हो गया, all that. Then cultural, different groups. So cultural geography also is regional geography. Hope you get an idea. This I already told you that there was no geography or geographers, only philosophers. Eventually and initially, all geographical study will be regional geography. People or the philosophers will be going to different regions and they will find diversity and they will start cataloging the new things that they saw. So, knowingly or unknowingly, initially for 200 years, geography was regional geography, and regional geography will be again taken further by areal differentiation, regional synthesis, etc. And if you look at regional geography, couple of interesting things also are there. When you go to a particular place, cataloging and inventorization. Inventorization matlab you are making an inventory. Suppose you go to Madagascar, you find lemurs, you find different kind of trees, animals, etc. You make an inventory of that and you catalog the items. This is another important aspect of regional geography, that the geographers, what they end up doing, they end up doing cataloging, they end up doing inventorization. Keep these wordings in mind and you have to use these wordings in your answer. I have only picked out the most important wordings that can be used in your answer. Okay. बाद में क्या होता है? For 200 years, geography was what? Regional geography only. Different geographers going to different places, studying different items, finding diversity and doing writing about them. So it is essentially descriptive work. Then बाद में क्या होता है? हार्वर्ड में एक एपिसोड होगा. हार्वर्ड में the episode is that Harvard University there is a debate goes on that geography is not a science per se, and eventually in Harvard they will close the geographical department and the geographers will be kicked out. They are out of the job, okay, because geography is not a scientific subject. So they will close the department. So it will be a very big blow to the geographers across the world. And the criticism was that geography is nothing more than a journal book. बाद में क्या होगा? Because geography was pushed into a corner and was almost about to die as a discipline, the geographers were kicked out of Harvard. They will beg, borrow and steal from all other branches of science. They will steal from mathematics, they will steal from statistics, they will steal from physics. Wherever they found a model, they stole from all other scientific subjects and they will try to bring that into the realm of geography. For example, जैसे geography में we say gravity model, quantification and statistics, empiricism, model and law. These things, these things are because of this particular event. Okay. So geographers will beg, borrow and steal to save geography from extinction. ठीक है. This will give rise to positivism. Positivism का मतलब क्या है? That scientific inquiry, the inquiry is based on data, fact. Okay. So that will eventually result in quantitative revolution. When there will be quantitative revolution, geography में what we'll see that geographers will focus on creating models, creating laws, creating theories, hypotheses, testing, falsifying. See, a theory can be, we can do two things. When there is a theory or a hypothesis or law, we can verify it or falsify it. Okay, so they will create a lot of that to make geography a scientific discipline. So this will give rise to that quantitative revolution. बाद में पढ़ेंगे. So now first geography was essentially regional geography for more than 200 years. Then almost there is a scientific revolution. यहाँ पे regional geography was not scientific enough, so there will be a threat to geography and geography will undergo scientific revolution. ठीक है. This scientific revolution is essentially known as quantitative revolution. यहाँ पे क्या होगा? Geography will focus on the matters of mind, data, fact, logic, ये सब. ठीक है. Reasoning, rationality, all that. They will come up with a lot of models. They will come up with different metrics. And this point of time, geography is value neutral. It is not advocating any particular value. It is only, creating models and all. And apart from that, geography is non-political in nature. Okay? Geography is not talking about society per se in quantitative revolution. We'll discuss that, what does it mean by value neutral? What does it mean by, non-political in nature? But keep this in mind. This is a scientific revolution and science is non-political and science is value neutral. Okay. That's why in quantitative revolution, geography will mimic the similar aspects from science. बाद में क्या होगा? Quantitative revolution में क्या होगा? We'll create models, you might have read, a lot of models. Man becomes a dot in the model. ठीक है? So we are subject to that, geometry. If you look at say Christeller's CPT, you might have seen that hexagonal model and all, right? So this geometric determinism, quantitative revolution will result in geometric determinism. And man remains as a dot in the model. So eventually there will be a critical backlash against the quantitative revolution, because quantitative revolution में they will create a different law model, ये सब बनाएंगे, but eventually they will not solve the miseries of the society. ठीक है? So there will be a critical backlash and we'll see rise of behavioralism. Again, against the cure there will be another social relevance revolution. Social relevance revolution. If there is a subject, social science subject, say geography, but if it is not solving the issues of poverty, solving the issues of inequality, if it is not able to solve the issue of sexism, racism, crime, see, geography of everything, right? So if it is not solving the social problems, then what is the point of geography? So geography will be questioned as a subject. What is its, its social relevance? That will result in social relevance revolution, where we'll see emergence of radicalism. यहाँ पे क्या होगा? Quantitative revolution में the mind used to dominate, but here the heart used to dominate. That's what they say, right? We should have a capitalist mind and communist heart, right? So this is social relevance revolution में there will be focus on what? Political aspects. Poverty हो गया. The miseries of the man will be the focus of radicalist. ठीक है? And they will make geography political as well. They will bring inequality, they will bring race, crime, yes. And then after that, after the social relevance revolution, we will see what synthesis hoga. See, whenever there is one group of thought, there will be a counter to that. Okay, thesis, antithesis. When there will be juggling between these two, and there will be some degree of truth in both of them, some degree of untrue in both of them. Eventually, क्या होगा? Synthesis होगा. That synthesis we are living now, that is welfareism, environmentalism, yes. Okay? So this is how geography evolved over the years. This is a very simplified version of that. Next, discuss about areal differentiation. That is what is the syllabus begins with anyway. But I wanted you to give that background. If you don't understand the background, you won't understand geography as a subject, how it started, what happened. I gave a very extremely brief, brief introduction. Okay? Usually I take 2-3 classes on that.